mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about episode 4 of Apple TV's Presumed Innocent, entitled The Burden. Not since Succession have I been able to say that I really like an episode title. I know y'all probably were like, what, he about to compare this to Succession? No, I'm not. The more you pay attention to the titles of episodes, the more you realize how most shows are pretty basic with it. Like, it'll be a line from the episode, or it'll reference a scene, something like that. Only a handful try to make the episode titles have some sort of complexity or meaning that goes beyond like a surface level interpretation. So I just want to say that I really like this episode title. They're doing kind of a lot with this one. At least I was able to do a lot with it. The surface level interpretation is just relating to the burden of proof. Essentially, that's the prosecutor needed to provide sufficient evidence to prove their case. Maya, she's the black female attorney that's working with Raymond to defend Rusty. She says the term directly. She says that Nico and Tommy are going to have a hard time getting their burden. But we also know that burden has a definition that we all can relate to. Just a heavy load, whether it's mentally or physically taxing, just a heavy load. It's a burden on your mind, on your body. And this episode shows the burden that Rusty has put on everyone with his actions. His kids, his wife, Raymond. And not just the burden that he's put on them by getting himself into this situation, by cheating with Carolyn, being there on the night of the murder, etc. But the burden that he continues to put on them in defending him when he continues to lose his shit over and over. It's also really easy to muddy the waters for the audience as it pertains to whether or not Rusty killed Carolyn when we see Rusty consistently losing his temper to varying degrees. There's the varying degrees in my notes. Temperature degrees. Losing his temper to varying degrees throughout this episode and throughout this season. So yeah, I thought the title of The Burden, particularly without the traditional of proof to follow, it really worked, allowing this title to have several interpretations rather than just the kind of surface level one. So nice work there. I thought this was yet another strong episode. I just love a small morsel of whatever drugs that Alan Sepinwall consumed when he said that this show was a snooze fest, because it hasn't even tepidly approached boring, and I'm now firmly convinced that it's not going to. Hey everybody, I just want to take a small break from this review to talk about the various other ways you can engage with me on other platforms. If you're so inclined, and I understand why you wouldn't, I am an acquired taste, but you can join the Patreon where you can get extra content like retro reviews, where I review old shows and movies to see if they still hold up today, Mike's Musings, where I talk about shows I'm watching that I don't cover on the channel, or Mike's VOD, where you can commission me to watch a show, which I will then review on the channel. And if you want to engage with me and chat with me more directly, I also implore you to join the Discord and follow the Facebook page. I set up channels in the Discord for all of us to discuss the shows I'm reviewing on the channel, and I also drop new videos in there since it's the easiest platform for me to share to from my phone. The Facebook can be really fun because I sort of live comment on shows I'm watching, often while under the influence, I'm not going to lie. And I'll also share news there, both about television and film, and about myself as well. So if you like my content, you want to be more engaged, you think I'm charming, or you simply want to show support, feel free to sign up for the Patreon or join the Discord or Facebook today. Links to all platforms are in every video description. Remember to share all my shit to your respective social media platforms. And now back to this review. The opening scene with Rusty badgering the witness, aka his son, about why he was at Carolyn's house, great stuff, man. Great scene. Both from Gyllenhaal and Kingston Rumi Southwick, who plays Kyle. On one hand, it makes sense that Rusty would go that hard on him like that. He's already stressed and worried for himself. Now he has to worry about his child potentially being involved in a murder. I'd be beside myself too. But as a lawyer, he would also know all the right questions to ask to get that information out of Kyle. But then he goes too hard, and it does come off like, hold on now, brother. You was the one fucking and possibly murdering behind mom's back. I'm gonna need you to stop prosecuting your son and chill the fuck out. Another thing this episode did that I found interesting was it set up the potential to make Barbara look like less of a victim. Now, I may have read too much into this scene, I admit that. But this could help make sure that the back half of this season doesn't feel, as Sepinwall said, elongated. I do have some concern that we'll have like 3 straight episodes in a courtroom and it can begin to feel drawn out, but I'm intrigued by the idea of flashbacks that show Barbara in a different light. Rusty says that Barbara played a role in all of this and needs to take some fucking responsibility. And she later cops to like allowing them to drift apart, but I wonder if it's more than that. Also, where are we going with this whole thing with her and Cliff, the bartender? I'll admit, this could just be straight surface level. My husband did XYZ, fuck it, I'm gonna get some dick on the side. It could be as simple as that. But I wonder if this flirtatious behavior isn't a reaction to Rusty's behavior. What if it's been an issue? Like, prior to even falling for Carolyn, she'd been pushing Rusty away and maybe having affairs of her own, or at minimum, just being inappropriate and making him wonder. Admittedly, that's a reach. I know that. But it would definitely help fill out the back half of the season with more informative flashbacks, and it would make the Cliff scenes feel a lot more relevant. Well, I don't want to say make them feel more relevant. They are relevant. They're already relevant. They're showing us how Barbara is dealing with everything that's going on, but they're not at all interesting. Using them to provide a little bit more context to Barbara and a little bit more information on who she is and what not what her past is like, but what their past together, her and Rusty, that could be interesting. Getting back at your cheating spouse by cheating yourself is not exactly the most imaginative response to the situation, so it does make me hope that that we're getting these scenes for some reason other than just showcasing Barbara's response. Another thing I want to talk about is the show setting up red herrings along the way. You know, I said in my review for last week's episode that I figured this show might do that, and ended the episode by making Kyle look like a suspect was proof of that. You know, with the whole thing of him being in the photos. Excuse me. It's like a cheap cliffhanger. We go, oh shit, Kyle was there? And then they get to open that next episode with Kyle going, maybe I was just wondering what your reason was for being there. And then you gotta just drop it. But this week, you could blink and you miss it, but they kind of softly floated out the idea that Tommy, the lawyer that's prosecuting Rusty, might have killed Carolyn. And again, it's a very soft, they just floated it up like a soft little floater from the free throw line. When Tommy is questioning Carolyn's mystery kid, the one that nobody knew about but Carolyn, we learned that she told him that she was becoming scared of someone from work. Now, for starters, of course, that kid could be lying about that because he might think like this is gonna make Rusty look bad. I want to get Rusty in trouble. I believe that Rusty killed my mom, so that kid could be lying. But if we are to take him at his word, the natural assumption is that Carolyn was referring to Rusty. Like, we've seen his temper, we've seen how off the rails he can get, particularly as it pertains to Carolyn. But then Tommy goes, did she say the co-worker's name? And then he gets really intense looking, some scary music starts to swell, and it's heavily implied that Tommy might be the co-worker that she's scared of and not Rusty. So I'd really like to explore that. Not me personally right now. I'd like for the show to explore that. Tommy's been a prick the whole series. It'd be pretty easy to show him being a dick to her on a case that they might have been working on and losing his temper at some point. I almost said temperature again. Just because we've only seen her working with Rusty, that doesn't mean that she's exclusively worked with Rusty, right? She probably could have worked some cases with Tommy. Another big moment this week revolves around the search to find the person behind a sperm sample that was found at the house of Bunny Davis. That's the other victim that was hogtied and whose case that Rusty and Carolyn worked on together. They find out this guy's name is Brian Ratzer, and Rusty and the cop who got him the info, they go pay this guy a visit. Now, the cop, she tells Rusty to shut the fuck up while they're there, but Rusty antagonizes the fuck out of this guy, resulting in Ratzer later showing up at Rusty's doorstep and being greeted with a three-piece, and I don't mean chicken. Beating the shit out of someone on your doorstep, particularly considering how this guy ended up on Rusty's doorstep in the first place, it's going to make him look really bad. I'm really looking forward to the next episode. I don't see how this doesn't damn near ruin Rusty's chances of winning this case. This entire episode made Rusty look bad, like the kind of guy who's capable of losing his shit and getting violent. But Raymond made a good point when he met with Nico and Tommy, and I'm going to talk about that scene. The hog tying shows premeditation. I can't see Rusty losing his shit, but then keeping his shit long enough to hog tie a woman that he loved. I don't know. I feel like at some point in the hog tying, you're going to calm down and be like, I'm a lawyer and I'm married and I have kids. I shouldn't be hog tying my coworker. But this episode still went a long way to convincing us that he's capable of violence by consistently showing him fly off the handle. I already talked about the opening scene and how he lawyered his son. Then we have how he antagonized Brian Ratzer. We see several other moments as well of Rusty losing his temper, with the most impactful being one that may or may not have even happened. So when Maya's questioning him about what happened that night, the night of Carolyn's murder, he tells her a version of events, but we see his mind kind of race through a number of possibilities. Like there's a version where he arrives at her house and they kiss. He arrives as she slowly backs off. He arrives as she pushes him away more aggressively. We don't know which of those is the reality, but what we do know is that one of these scenarios does show Rusty getting violent. We don't know if these are memories or scenarios that he's imagining, but it culminates with Maya asking how the night ended. He says that she kissed him, which made me go, oh. I was surprised. Oh, really? Out loud, like at my TV. Oh. But then he says that she did that because she knew what it would do to him, and that made her fucking cruel. So Rusty does not look good in this scene, you guys. So much so that Maya, Raymond, and we all mutually agreed that Rusty should not be allowed to testify in this trial. I do think that inevitably means that Rusty will end up having to testify in this trial. Looking forward to that. But yeah, not a good episode for Rusty. Speaking of the trial, Nico continues to be concerned about how personal the trial is for Tommy. So when Raymond wants to meet with them, he knows that Raymond must feel like he has something strong to get a plea deal out of them. And he does. When they meet, Raymond lays out all the facts about how circumstantial their case is, how none of Carolyn's blood's in Rusty's car, they haven't found a murder weapon. Like I said earlier, the hog tying shows premeditation, which doesn't help their case that Rusty lost his shit and got violent. And then there are the political ramifications of a newly elected Nico losing this case because Tommy can't see through his bias to get the focus that he needs to beat a much more seasoned lawyer and veteran like Raymond. It all looks really bad when Raymond tells him that Rusty will cop the obstruction and do 3 years. That's the offer. Obstruction, 3 years. But Tommy has finally acquired the medical report. And side note, what is it with him and that doctor? Like, why are they so... I don't... Are they going to explore that some more? Or is that just meant to be funny? Like, they just keep fucking with each other. Anyway, he has the report, and we learned that Rusty's skin was found under Carolyn's fingernails. Now, this was a strange way to end the episode for me because it's treated as some huge damning moment, but I don't see the big deal about a man's skin being under the fingernails of a woman he was fucking. Like, there's already a lot of damaging stuff in Rusty's case, but I don't think that changes anything. Like, they've already copped to the relationship. They don't intend on denying that he was there or that they were having sex. I don't see why you don't see that evidence and go, well, we could just say that they was fucking. I don't know. And yeah, he hasn't said that so far that they had sex, but he hasn't not said it. So they can do that. So it doesn't mess up the show's narrative to have to start claiming it now. Like, hell, it even adds to it because now we, the audience, have to wonder if he's telling the truth or not. Like, did they have sex? Or is he just saying that to make an excuse for the skin being under the fingernails? Instead, he starts saying that they're setting him up, which is way less conceivable than just saying that y'all fucked that night and you really put it down, so that's why your skin is under her nails. There are a few other things that happen in this episode that have yet to germinate into something we can theorize about, but are of note nonetheless. They're doing something with the therapist, played by Lily Rabe. She suggests only treating Barbara rather than all sorts of combinations of her family. She gets nowhere with Kyle in this episode. Things continue to escalate with Barbara and Cliff, the bartender. They briefly trick us into thinking that the two are having sex, but it ultimately ends up being Rusty and Barbara. I feel like my theory from earlier is a bit much, but I also don't find this piece of the story that interesting. If anything, this feels elongated, like Seppenwall said, this part. Like, Raymond really digs into Rusty's character in this episode. And that makes me wonder if personally losing respect for Rusty will affect Raymond's ability to try the case. And then lastly, they're making something of this other lawyer there, Eugenia, testifying in the case because she could speak to Rusty and Carolyn's relationship. Tommy says that he thinks Eugenia has a crush on Rusty, and then Eugenia later tells Raymond to tell Rusty that she has no intention of saying anything damaging about him when she testifies. She's also very apprehensive about testifying in the first place, even though it's only to speak to the relationship that Rusty and Carolyn had. Anyone else now think that Eugenia did it? Like, if she has a crush on him, or if they fucked in the past as well, that would give her motive to take out Carolyn, jealousy. She again would also presumably know about the Buddy Davis case and the hog tying and would know to do that as well. This feels like an even stronger theory than my one last week that Barbara did it, but I don't know. Let's see where the show's going to take us. But Barbara feels kind of like an almost obvious theory. Eugenia feels like one that they're trying to kind of like, let's not go too far with that yet. and all the things are still there. The opportunity, the motive, the knowledge of the hog tying, it all kind of ties up. So let me know what you thought in the comments about this episode. What you think about my theory? Do you think Eugenia did it? Do you think Barbara did it? Do you think Rusty did it? Let me know what you thought in the comments, and until next week, peace.